the government singled you out to try to make you a target and make you look like a enemy of the people, an enemy of the government, an enemy of the Constitution, which is exactly the opposite of what you're trying to do.
That is correct.
Did I misstate anything there?
No. No, you didn't.
Remember, since 1994, we have been asking them to show us the law requiring the average American to pay a tax on the fruits of our labor. They have never done so. Even during the trial, Ed said, show me the law and I'll pay you the tax right now. Never did. Now, what would be easier? If the law is there, wouldn't it be easier just to show it to us rather than go through all this expense, all this agony, all this time?
Millions of dollars that they're spending on this case?
Right.
And they'll spend that money.
So will I.
And they will spend it and spend it, and they create
so will
it.
I.
They spend it out of thin air, though. They create out of
And
thin
so
air.
will I. Anything they can do, we can do out here too, but people just don't realize that. We have the same capabilities that they have. They just may have more of it. For example, they have more weapons than we do for their intimidation and their official oppression, but they have no more capabilities than we do. We have a superior attitude, superior minds, superior capabilities, bottom line, and we'll outlast them because we're fighting for our very nation. They're fighting for money, personal enrichment. We're not. We're fighting for freedom. And we will not stop. If they wish to engage, if they wish to push this envelope and try to take over this nation, and we know exactly who they are, right here in this town, in this county, in this state, in this nation, and other nations around the world. They try to blame this stuff on the Al-Qaeda or Omar bin Laden and other people like that for these things that are happening, when they're the ones that are actually doing it for fact of record.
Well, I think the film Loose Change proved that.
Yes, it did. So we're aware of it when they blew up, when these people in our federal agencies contributed to blowing up the World Trade Center with Mr. Silverstein and others. They knew. We're aware. We have the record in hand.
That's a similar thing they did to Danny Riley. You know, our house guest who was shot at back on June 7th.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Our house guest early one morning was walking the dog up the driveway. He had a cup of coffee in his hand and came upon 13 federal agents dressed in ghillie suits all along the driveway who shot at him. 2 shots both shots went right past his head. He yelled at them to stop shooting. He was unarmed. They jumped out, threw him to the ground, and once they had him on the ground, they tased him. And then they
After they got him on the ground, they
After they got
yes,
him on the ground. That's
yes,
correct.
yes.
Isn't that torture?
Yes, it
I'd
is.
say so.
In law and definition, it is torture, yes.
And they then took him elsewhere, and
St. Gordon's National Park.
we're trying to get information from him, trying to get him to be a spy for us or whatever, and told him that the official story was to be that 2 local police officers were coming down here to serve us papers, and he ran into them and they arrested him. And that if he told anyone what actually happened, he could get up to life in prison. Danny very cleverly went home, and the first thing he did was he made a video and put the whole truthful situation right out on the internet, which was the best thing for his own protection that he could have done.
People don't seem to realize the best thing you can do is go public.
Now
Tell
that day they had 6 state police cars from Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts at a staging area about a mile down the road.
12.
They had 4.
It came down like at 7:30 in the morning. They had 6 state police cruisers from Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts escorting 2 armored personnel carriers heading south on 12A toward our location. It's a phone call I received about 5 minutes after they arrested Danny Riley, about 8:30, about an hour later. Then I got another phone call saying there were 2 more armored personnel carriers with 6 more state troopers. That's a total of 12 cruisers now from 3 different states heading south in our direction. Then as it turned out later on in the day, we found out that they had, which of course put us on full alert here. And thank God, or whatever powers that bear, that those agents did not come down that driveway that day, because a lot of them would have been dead. That was horrible. I was out on the front steps when I heard the shots My dog came tearing down the driveway, ran right past me, right into the house. She was afraid. I heard the shots. I knew something was bad was going down. So
Why did Danny submit to the arrest? Isn't he a free man? Why didn't he just say, you're not taking me down?
Yeah.
They physically, they got the guns on. They've already fired 2 shots, and obviously they intended to kill. Now, lethal force action is when you fire shots or fire anything in the direction, just in the direction of somebody. That's lethal force, on the definition of lethal force. Look it up. So they using lethal force just to stop him.
For a man walking his dog.
A man walking his dog.
He was just physically
He was in a
overpowered.
t-shirt with shorts on, so obviously, and sneakers. So you obviously could see he had no gun and weapons on him.
Right.
But they fired anyway.
And they were on your property or just off your
No,
property?
they never reached the property. They did come onto the driveway, which is the right of way that I have. They were on the neighbor's property, Mr. Cloud up here, the next door neighbor. On his property, either side of the driveway, and one was at the end of the driveway on Supreme Court Justice, Federal Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer owns the land at the end of my driveway across the street. He's got 550 some odd acres over there.
He's got 500 acres?
Correct, for his summer place now. This is his summer
It's
place.
just his summer home.
That is correct.
Do you ever go over and talk to him and say, why don't you
I
put an
talked
end
to
to
him
this?
twice. Yes, I have. On
What
the
does
road.
he say?
He said he cannot, Mr. Brown, he said, I cannot discuss any of this subject matter unless I'm seated on the bench, in session with the Supreme Court. I said, well, Mr. Brown, this whole country's heading for a war, another revolutionary war. He says, that may be, he said, but I can't discuss it right now. That's what he said both times.
What do you hope he might have said?
That we should investigate this and we should look into it further and clarify it and do something about it.
You're hoping he would have said the Supreme Court will investigate, but the Supreme Court doesn't investigate.
I don't care. Anybody who lives in this country should be investigating when they hear of a danger in their nation. It is his responsibility as a judge to go to the nearest appropriate judge when he hears of a crime and report it.
And report it, you're right.
That's right in the law. I mean, I know the law very, very well. He didn't do that.
I'm Wm Wagener for On Second Thought. I hope you pay attention. Well, folks, that was an exclusive On Second Thought interview no one else got. That is the last interview done by Elaine before the federal agents tricked them into thinking they were friends, captured them in their own house on their own property. All they did is refuse to pay a voluntary tax, which even the IRS Commissioner admits voluntary. Well, if it's voluntary, how come you got this nice dentist and her husband locked up in a federal prison costing you taxpayers dollars? I think Ron Paul would give them a pardon because he's going to abolish the IRS and you will never have to worry about a 1040 or the IRS again if Ron Paul's president.
He believes the way I do. And the thing is, I think he should win.
Because he's pro-life.
Right.
He's a Christian.
Right.
He's for our Second Amendment. He wants to defend our borders and stop illegal people from coming into this country.
Right.
He wants to abolish the IRS. What's wrong with any of that? It's all good. It's the stuff Bush has failed to do. Well, I'm Wm Wagener. That's my First Amendment opinion while we still have a First Amendment under the Bush regime that many of you were tricked into voting for. Because if you listen to Bush's old speeches, he says he was not going to march around the world spreading democracy. And he did exactly the opposite. He's a liar like his father was. Remember, read my lips, no new taxes, and then he slammed us with a new tax. Like father, like son, same thing. Well, I'm Wm Wagener, and you are?
Bill DeBoer.
Uncle Sam, Wm Wagener saying thanks for watching On Second Thought, and boy, you won't want to miss the next show. So catch us here, same time, same channel. This is Wm Wagener saying catch us next week.
So long.